Okay, I think we're ready to get started. After all that testing, I'm actually so nervous. Like, this is my first one. It feels so intimate. So the other day I was here at the salon and somebody asked me, they're like, oh, like, what's the craziest thing you've done? And I think what she meant was like, what's the craziest hair I've done? What I took it as is like, what's your craziest experience? And I was thinking back and I remembered this lady that came in and I was like, what the was this? Like, how was this even real? And as I was telling her the story, there was things that I had forgotten that I was re-remembering and I was like, what was I thinking in this moment? Like, how did I get this far to not stop the appointment? Like, I should have called it way sooner. And you guys will see, like, through the story, like, things just keep adding up and getting worse and worse and worse. Basically, the story starts. I was chilling, and the night before the appointment, I get like the alert that I had booked. And I look at the appointment notes and it looks normal. Like, it's nothing super crazy. It was like a root color and a haircut. So, like a 3 hour appointment, it wasn't gonna be like super long. My boss calls me after I get this appointment notification that I had been booked, and he tells me, okay, this lady's coming in and her boyfriend's gonna pay for the appointment. So when you go to check her out, like, just use the card on file. And this was pretty common practice. Like, a lot of people came in and like it was a kid and their mom was paying, or like a wife's husband was paying or whatever. So I honestly didn't like pay much attention to it, but he should have, because he took the credit card information, and you'll see later in this story, it was a lady's name on the credit card. So it didn't make any sense that her boyfriend was paying. And he also lets me know that she's going to be doing extensions. And at this point, I hadn't started doing extensions yet. So I texted one of my coworkers. I made sure that he would have free time during the appointment to do a consultation with her and color match her and all that. So that was pretty normal. Like, okay, whatever. We get to the day of the appointment, and her appointment was scheduled to start at 11 o'clock. So at like, I think I was also scheduled to start at 11 o'clock. So I get in at like 10:45. I set up my station and I'm waiting at the front desk for her to come in. And then it's like 11 o'clock. It's 11:05. It's 11:15. And at this point I was like, okay, let me call her. Cause she had been confirmed and she just booked the night before. So it's not like she forgot about the appointment. Like, sometimes people would book months in advance and forget, but also sometimes people would just waste your time. But she had a card on file, so I knew that she wasn't just gonna skip out on the appointment. Like, we were gonna charge her either way. So I call her and I'm like, hey, this is Antonio from or hey, this is Antonio from the salon. Are you still coming in for your appointment? Like, what's up? It was set to start 15 minutes ago. And she starts going on. She's like, oh my God, I'm like up the street, like some kid stole my car and he slept over last night, and I woke up and my car keys were gone. So I'm on my way. I'll be there soon. And I was like, okay, girl, like, she was having a bad day. Like, I don't know what happened that she got her car stolen. Like, I don't know how that just happens to a normal sort of person. But at this point I was like, okay, I haven't met her yet. Like, this is weird, but whatever. Like, just come in and we'll start the appointment. So mind you, I called her at like 11:15 and she told me that she was gonna be in there in like 5 minutes. She doesn't show up to the appointment for another like 25 minutes. So she was not down the street. Like, I don't know where she was, but she knew damn well she wasn't getting there in that time. So she shows up at like 11:40, and at this point I was a new stylist, so I didn't have much on my book. So I was like, whatever, we might as well start. Like, I'll get this lady's appointment done. Like, it's not like I have someone after her that I have to move or anything. Let's just get it going, because like, I've already been waiting for you. So yeah, I didn't have anything else, but like, I waited 40 minutes for you to come in. Like, you're like, I don't have time to waste just waiting for you. Like, I could have been at home, I could have been sleeping. Like, what are you doing? So she finally makes it for her appointment. It's like 11:40 at this point. And she starts going on like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. This kid stole my car. Like, we went out last night and then he slept over. And then I woke up this morning and it was just gone. And I was like, what is your life, girl? Like, you need to make some new friends. Like, this is too crazy for me. But whatever. Let's get started. So I get her in the chair and we're having our consultation and whatever. Like, she was a first time client. So it's always kind of weird when you have a first time client. Like, you have to like get to know them, get to know what their color's like what they're trying to do. But it wasn't like she was doing anything crazy. She was doing a root color. So I don't exactly remember what it was, but it was like a super dark color. So it's like there's not much room for error there. And then she's getting a haircut done too, but like just a trim of her ends, like nothing super crazy. So I go to the back, I mix up the color, I come back and we start putting it on. And I was like, before I started the appointment, I was like, oh, do you want anything to drink? And she's like, no, I'm good. I have like my drink or whatever. And I was like, okay, bet. So while I'm putting on her color, she finally discloses to me that this full, like, it was a big cup. Let me show you. It wasn't this shape, but it was probably this much liquid. Like, it was not like a little sip or whatever. She's like, oh, I have my drink. Oh, I brought in some wine. And I was like, period. Like, I know that it's very common for salons to serve wine. I've never worked somewhere that serves wine for reasons like this. But if you want to have fun, like, whatever, do your thing, girl. But then I started like piecing the puzzle pieces together. And I was like, okay, so you couldn't come into your appointment on time because someone stole your car and you brought in this like tumbler full of wine. So it's like not only is she drinking and driving, like while she's driving, she has this giant thing of wine like with her in her lap. I was like, what is this lady doing? But whatever. I'm like, okay, like have your fun, girl. Like at this point, like I was annoyed and I was stressed out, but at the same time, I'm like, she was really funny. Like she was a good time. So I didn't really hold anything too much against her. Like I said, I wasn't super busy, so it's not like she really didn't cause me too much struggle besides the fact that like I was waiting for her. But I wasn't gonna be doing anything anyways. It was just like crazy. So I I keep putting on her color. She's drinking her wine, and she gets a phone call, and she's like, "Oh, give me 1 second. It's my man." And I was like, "Girl, go ahead, do your thing." And I don't know what possessed her. Like maybe it was the one. I don't know why she decided to pick up the phone call on speaker, but it's like ring, ring.
This is a prepaid collect call from an inmate at Florida Correctional Institution.
And I was like, oh my God. So she gets put through to her boyfriend and she's telling him the story now in a lot more detail, obviously, because he knows the kid that stole her car. Oh, and she had mentioned, she was like, his phone's turned off, so I couldn't even get a hold of him. And it's like, no offense, I know people struggle financially, but this kid stole your car. He doesn't have money to pay his phone bill. Like, what is going on in your life? Like, that is so crazy. Like, what are you talking about? So I finished putting on her color, and at this point, it has to like process for 35 minutes or whatever. So I go into the back of the salon, and I'm telling everybody this story. I'm like, you guys will not believe this drama that's in my chair. Like, it's so crazy. And I go through and I tell them all like the story that I've just been telling you guys. And then my other coworker, it was me and my coworker sat behind me. Like, we were back to back stations, and he was gonna be the one to do her extension console. So he comes into the back and he's like, you need to go get your girl. Like, she's acting crazy. And I was like, what do you mean she's acting crazy? Like, she's processing with her color. What could she possibly be doing? Like, there's no one for her to even talk to. So I come up to the front of the salon, and she at this point, like, she must have finished the wine because she's visibly drunk and she's like stumbling around looking at the products in the front, and she keeps like picking everything up and putting it on someone else's station. Not even my station that we're sitting at, like just somebody that's working. Like, she's just putting random products that like there's no reason for her to grab, like things that would not work for her, things that she has no reason to get. She's just putting them there, and she's like, oh, I'm gonna buy all of this. This would have been like $500 worth of product. Like, she had a lot of stuff up there. So I was like, girl, I came up to her, I was like, go sit down, like, we'll talk about product at the end. Like, you do not need to be doing this right now. I put away all the product, and then I'm sitting there like babysitting her, essentially, like making sure that she's not getting up and causing a disturbance for the rest of the salon. And that was probably for like 25 minutes, and we were just talking like random things. I asked her, I was like, oh, how was going out last night? She was like, oh, you know, I was like shaking my ass in the club. She was like, you know, I get down. Like, she was showing me videos. Like, she was annoying. Like, at this time point, I'm stressed out, obviously, because she's acting a fool. She was late, but I was like, let me get my bag. Like, I'm gonna make money off this appointment regardless, and like, I don't care. Like, I can be inconvenienced as long as she's not messing with the other clients. Like, that's just what I didn't want. I don't want the other clients to be like, what is wrong with this girl? Like, why is she doing all this? So I was like, let me just keep her happy, and we'll be good. So I wash out her color, I blow dry her, I do her haircut or whatever, and then my other coworker has time to do the extension console. So he's coding her out for extensions, and if you've never done extensions before, they're a very expensive service. So the way it works is that, like, when you come in for your initial appointment, you get color matched, and we figure out like what hair and what method we're gonna use for you. And then you order the hair, you pay for that up front, and then you pay for the installation price next time. Price of the hair is the most expensive part. It's like $800 to $1,200 depending on what you're doing, and she wanted it super long. I think the quote for just the hair ended up being like $900 a grand. Like it was a good amount of money. But I was like, if she can afford it, period, like people can't afford it and people do invest that much in their hair. So whatever. But she didn't look, no offense, she didn't look like the type of girl that could afford these things. Like her friend's getting his phone turned off. She came in like sweatpants and a ratty t-shirt. Like usually these girls like care a lot about their appearance. They're coming in like all done up. So it was just weird. I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm not here to tell you how much money you make. Like this is not a pretty woman scenario. Let's just get it done. We finish up the appointment. She ends up not buying any of that product that she was messing with. Like, I don't even know what got into her to want to do that. Like, she didn't want any of it. I think she was just curious. Like, she wanted to, like, touch the bottles and feel them. Go to check her out, and my service ends up being, like, $200. Like, not cheap, but not super expensive. But then like I ring up the extra $800 and I go to check her out with the card on file, like I had mentioned before. So the way it would work, it was basically like if you were checking out with a regular credit card, you would still sign and stuff, but I had to go and like click the card on file to do it. So I go to do it and she signs or whatever, and then it's going through and the transaction's declined. It like does not work. So she's like, there should be money in there, like try again, let's see. And I do the transaction again and it gets declined again. And I'm like, do you want to call whoever it is? Like maybe they just don't have the money in their checking account. Like it was a pretty expensive service. Like, do you want to see what's going on? And she's like, yeah, sure. So she calls somebody and she's talking on the phone with them. And mind you, I told you, this was a lady's name on the card. I think she ended up telling me at the appointment that it was her aunt or something paying for it. But when she calls, it's a man on the phone. And it's like very clearly a woman's name. Like it's not like something that you can get confused. It was like Amanda or something. So she's on the phone and you can hear, like her speaker was turned up high. You could hear on the other line, like a man talking back, and she was like, oh, the card's not like going through, like what's going on? And then the guy was like, I couldn't hear exactly what he was saying, but it seemed like he was saying like, oh, there should be money in the account, like it should be fine. And I was like, okay, like this is weird, whatever. So I told her, I was like, you don't have to get the extensions today. Like the only thing you have to pay for today, because we already did it, was the service. So why don't we just try this, like charging you for just the service, and then when you figure out the like card situation, you can give us a call back and we can charge you over the phone. Like that's not an issue. She's like very adamant that she wants to pay for the extensions that day. So I was like, okay girl, I'll try one more time. Tried again and it didn't work. And I was like, look, we're gonna have to figure this out a different time. You can come back in later today if that's what you want to do. Like, but let's just get the service paid for because I need to get paid. I go and I ring up the service and that finally goes through. Like she signs for it and she's like, okay, I'll call you guys back later for the extension order. And I was like, okay, bet. So she leaves. I think after the fact, my coworker that did the consult with her ended up calling her to see if she was still going to do it. Because obviously he's going to make a good amount of money off the service. So he was like trying to convince her like to finish paying for them because she said she wanted them. Finally, I'm done with this service. I'm like, thank God, like, I got my money. Like, at the end, it was kind of worth it, like, whatever. She didn't tip me because our tipping system was through a different software and she didn't have the physical card. So we could charge your card on file for the appointment, but we couldn't charge your card on file for tips. So I was like, whatever. Like, I went through all of that for no tip. Like, don't get me wrong. I never expect a tip, but like, I'm there dealing with a drunk lady. Like, the one positive thing about a drunk person is a lot of times they do tip you extra because they're not in their right mind, which like, say what you will, we don't serve them the alcohol, they bring it themselves. So like, that's their bad. That's not our bad. We're not taking advantage of them or anything else. But whatever, I was like, at least I got the money for the service. And like 2 or 3 days later, my boss calls me and he's like, hey, do you remember that lady that like you did the other day that wanted the extensions or whatever? And I was like, of course, how could I forget? And he goes, oh, well, I just got a call from Amanda, the lady with the card on file. She says she's never been there and that she doesn't know who that was, but she didn't authorize any charges on her card, so we have to refund her. And I was like, are you kidding me? So after the whole mess of that scenario and dealing with this drunk lady, fighting with her for the extensions, fighting with her for the product, I didn't even get the money off the service. So if you take anything as a learning lesson from this situation, it's that if you have bad vibes about something, just trust them. Like, do not go through with it, because at the end, like, what did I spend? What did I stress myself out for? Like, what did I spend all that time doing for nothing? Like, literally for this lady to scam us and steal our money, like, steal our product and just stress me out. And thank God we did not order those extensions. Like, thank God that lady did not have enough money in her card, because we would have paid for them. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, we make a little bit of a kickback on the extensions, but we would have had these, like, $800 extensions that what like were we gonna do with? So yeah, that's my story of my craziest client.